What happens when a duchess walks onto a talk show expecting royal treatment but gets a reality check instead? In just 34 seconds, one comment turned a simple interview into the most explosive celebrity meltdown ever caught on camera. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think about this outrageous behavior. Let me take you inside the studio that night. The lights were hot, the audience was packed, and Bill Maher was ready for another episode of straight talk and no-nonsense interviews. His show had always been about asking the tough questions, the ones other hosts were too afraid to ask. That's what his audience loved. That's what made him different. Meghan Markle walked onto that stage like she owned it. Designer dress, perfect hair, a smile that looked practiced in front of 1,000 mirrors. The audience clapped because that's what audiences do. But Bill, he wasn't clapping. He was watching. He was studying. He knew this wasn't going to be your typical softball interview. "Welcome to the show," Bill said as Meghan settled into the guest chair. His tone was friendly enough, but there was something else there. A warning, maybe. A sign that he wasn't going to play the game everyone else played with her. "Thank you for having me," Meghan replied, crossing her legs and adjusting herself like she was posing for a magazine cover. "I've been looking forward to this." Bill dove right in. No warm-up questions. No small talk about the weather or her latest project. "So let's talk about your time in the royal family. You've said a lot about how difficult it was, how trapped you felt. But millions of people watched you live in palaces, wear designer clothes, and have access to resources most people can only dream about. Help me understand what was so terrible about that life." The smile on Meghan's face froze. You could see it, the mask slipping just a little bit. She hadn't expected him to go there so fast. She thought she'd get the usual treatment, the sympathy, the head nods, the "you're so brave" routine. "Well, Bill," she started, her voice taking on that tone people use when they're trying to sound patient, but they're actually annoyed. "Money and palaces don't equal happiness. I was suffering. I was struggling with my mental health. The institution wasn't supporting me." "Right, but you had access to the best doctors, the best therapists, unlimited resources," Bill shot back. "Most people dealing with mental health issues are working 2 jobs and can't afford therapy. They're not living in Kensington Palace. So when you talk about struggling, what does that actually mean in your world?" Meghan's jaw tightened. "You're diminishing my experience." "I'm not diminishing anything," Bill said, leaning forward. "I'm asking you to put it in perspective. Because when you go on international television and talk about how hard your life was while living in luxury, regular people who are actually struggling, who are actually broke, who are actually trapped in terrible situations, they're watching that and thinking, really? That's what you're complaining about?" The audience started reacting. Some gasps, some murmurs. This wasn't going the way anyone expected. Meghan wasn't used to this. She was used to Oprah. She was used to friendly interviews where every question was designed to make her look good. "I think you're being incredibly insensitive," Meghan said, her voice rising. "Do you know what it's like to have the entire world judging you? To have the media attacking you every single day?" Bill didn't miss a beat. "Actually, yes. I've been doing this show for years. I get death threats. I get protesters outside my studio. I get canceled every other week by someone who doesn't like what I said. But I don't go on TV and act like I'm the biggest victim in the world. I signed up for this, just like you signed up to marry into the royal family." "I didn't sign up to be bullied," Meghan snapped. "No, you signed up to be a princess," Bill countered. "You signed up for the crown, the title, the fame, the wealth. You can't just take the good parts and then complain when the job comes with pressure. That's like becoming a firefighter and then being surprised that fires are hot." Meghan sat back in her chair, her arms crossed now, full defensive mode. "You have no idea what I went through." "Then explain it to me," Bill said, without the vague statements, without the dramatic pauses. "Tell me one specific thing that was so unbearable that you had to leave an entire country." "The racism," Meghan said, playing what she clearly thought was her winning card. "The institution had concerns about how dark my son's skin would be. That's what I had to deal with." Bill nodded slowly. "Okay, that's serious. Did you report it? Did you name the person who said it? Did you go to the press in the UK with proof so that person could be held accountable?" "It's not that simple," Meghan said. "Why not?" Bill pressed. If someone in the royal family is racist, that's a massive story. That's something that should be exposed. But you went on Oprah, made this huge accusation, refused to name anyone, and then expected everyone to just take your word for it. How is that fair to the people you're accusing? I was protecting them, Meghan said, and even she seemed to realize how ridiculous that sounded the moment it left her mouth. Bill's eyebrows shot up. You were protecting the people who you say were racist to you? The people who you say made your life unbearable? That makes no sense. Unless, maybe, it didn't happen the way you said it did. How dare you, Meghan hissed. How dare you call me a liar? I'm not calling you a liar, Bill said calmly. I'm asking you questions. That's what journalists do. That's what hosts do. But you're acting like asking questions is the same as attacking you, and that's the problem. You want everyone to believe your version of events without any scrutiny. That's not how the world works. Meghan stood up slightly, then caught herself and sat back down. She was losing control, and she knew it. This interview is becoming hostile. No, it's becoming honest, Bill replied. Every other interviewer has treated you with kid gloves because they're afraid of being called racist or insensitive if they push back on your claims. But someone needs to ask these questions, because your story doesn't add up. My story is my truth, Meghan said, using that phrase she loves so much. Bill almost laughed. Your truth? There's no such thing as your truth. There's the truth. There are facts. There's what actually happened. You don't get to a day to have your own version of reality just because you're famous. The audience was dead silent now. Everyone could feel the tension building. This was getting ugly fast. You know what your problem is? Meghan said, pointing at Bill. You're a bully. You invite people onto your show and then you attack them. You make them feel small so you can feel big. No, Bill said, his voice steady and firm. My problem is that I don't bow down to celebrities who think they're above criticism. You came on this show knowing exactly what kind of host I am. You knew I asked tough questions. You thought you could handle it. Clearly, you can't. I can handle anything, Meghan shot back. I've handled worse than you. Then why are you so upset? Bill asked. If you've been through everything you claim you've been through, why can't you handle a few questions from a talk show host? Unless maybe, just maybe, you're not as strong as you pretend to be. Unless maybe you're just someone who plays the victim whenever things don't go your way. Meghan's face went red. I am not a victim. Then stop acting like one, Bill said. Take some responsibility. Admit that maybe, possibly, you made some mistakes too. Admit that maybe the royal family wasn't entirely wrong about everything. Admit that maybe you're not perfect. I never said I was perfect, Meghan said through gritted teeth. No, you just act like everyone else is the problem except you, Bill replied. The media is the problem. The royal family is the problem. The British public is the problem. Everyone is terrible except you. Do you see how that sounds? Meghan grabbed the arms of her chair. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do, Bill said. You agreed to come on this show. You agreed to this interview. You don't get to leave just because you're not getting the praise you expected. Watch me, Meghan said, starting to stand up. Oh, here we go, Bill said, addressing the audience now. The royal exit. This is what she does. When things get tough, she leaves. When people don't worship her, she runs away. She did it to the royal family. She did it to her own family. And now she's doing it here. Meghan stopped halfway out of her chair. You don't know anything about my family. I know you haven't spoken to your father in years, Bill said. I know you cut off almost everyone from your life before you got famous. I know you have a pattern of burning bridges and then blaming everyone else for the fire. My father sold stories about me to the tabloids, Meghan said, her voice shaking now. He betrayed me. He was trying to defend himself after you cut him out of your life, Bill countered. But you don't want to talk about that part, do you? You don't want to talk about how you erased your entire family once they weren't useful to you anymore. They weren't there for me, Meghan insisted. Or maybe you weren't there for them, Bill said. Maybe you got famous and decided you didn't need them. Maybe you married a prince and thought you were too good for the people who raised you. Did that ever occur to you? Meghan was fully standing now. This interview is over. Of course it is, Bill said, not moving from his chair, because you can't handle the truth. You can dish it out, you can make accusations, you can go on Oprah and trash people who can't defend themselves, but the second someone questions you, you fall apart. I'm not falling apart, Meghan said, but her voice was cracking. "You're a terrible person." "I'm a terrible person?" Bill repeated. "I'm not the one who abandoned my family. I'm not the one who married into royalty and then complained about being royal. I'm not the one who made millions of dollars talking about how oppressed I am. That's all you." Meghan turned to the producers off camera. "Get me out of here, now." But Bill wasn't done. "Before you go, answer one question. Just one. If your life was so terrible, if the royal family was so awful, why did you keep the title? Why are you still the Duchess of Sussex? Why didn't you give that back when you left?" Meghan spun around. "Because I earned it." "You earned it?" Bill said, and now he did laugh. "You married someone. That's not earning something. That's getting lucky. And then you complained about the job that came with the title, but you kept the title because you know it's the only reason anyone cares about you." "That's not true," Meghan said, but there was no conviction in her voice anymore. "Isn't it?" Bill asked. "Before you met Harry, you were a cable TV actress that most people had never heard of. Now you're internationally famous. Now you get million-dollar deals. Now you get to sit down with Oprah. And all of that came from marrying into the royal family. The same family you claim traumatized you. So either you're lying about how bad it was, or you're willing to keep profiting from your trauma. Which is it?" Meghan just stared at him. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked like someone had just knocked the wind out of her. "That's what I thought," Bill said quietly. "You're disgusting," Meghan finally managed to say. "You're a disgusting, hateful man." "I'm honest," Bill corrected, "and you can't stand it. You've spent years carefully crafting this image of yourself as this brave, victimized woman who overcame so much. But it's not real. It's a performance. And the second someone points that out, you crumble." Meghan looked at the audience, maybe hoping for support, but the room was split. Some people looked uncomfortable. Some looked angry. Some looked like they agreed with Bill. She wasn't getting the automatic sympathy she expected. "I was told this would be a respectful conversation," Meghan said, turning back to Bill. "It is respectful," Bill said. "Respect doesn't mean agreement. Respect doesn't mean I have to accept everything you say without question. Real respect means treating you like an adult who can handle pushback. But you don't want respect. You want worship." "I want to be treated like a human being," Meghan said. "Then act like one," Bill replied. "Stop playing these games. Stop manipulating interviews to make yourself look good. Stop using your race and your gender as shields against any criticism. Stop acting like you're the only person in the world who's ever had a hard time." Meghan shook her head. "I'm done. I'm leaving." "Finally, something we agree on," Bill said. "The door's right there. Don't let it hit you on the way out." Meghan started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking against the studio floor. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. Most stayed silent. But Bill had one more thing to say. "You know what the saddest part is?" he called after her. "You could have been great. You had this platform. You had this opportunity to actually make a difference. But instead, you chose to make everything about you. You chose to play the victim instead of being a leader. And that's why people are tired of you. Not because you're a woman, not because of your race, but because you're exhausting." Meghan stopped at the exit. For a second, it looked like she might turn around. It looked like she might come back and actually defend herself with facts instead of feelings. But she didn't. She pushed through the door and disappeared into the hallway. The audience erupted. Some were clapping. Some were booing. Some were just shocked. Bill sat there, completely calm, waiting for them to settle down. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when you bring an entitled celebrity onto a show that doesn't worship them, Bill said into the camera. They can't handle it. They walk away. Because they've been coddled for so long, they've forgotten what real conversation looks like. Back in the hallway, Meghan was surrounded by her team. Her publicist was on the phone, probably already doing damage control. The assistant was asking if she was okay. But Meghan wasn't listening to any of them. She was furious. She was humiliated. She had just been exposed on live television, and she knew it. "Get me out of this building," she told her team. Now. They rushed her toward the exit, past studio workers who were pretending not to stare. Everyone knew what had just happened. Everyone had heard the interview falling apart. It was going to be everywhere by morning. Meanwhile, back in the studio, Bill was wrapping up the show. "I know some of you think I was too hard on her," he said to the audience. "But here's the thing. If you're going to make serious accusations about racism, about abuse, about an entire institution, you better be ready to back it up. You better be ready to answer questions. And if you can't do that, then maybe you shouldn't be making those accusations in the first place. The audience was still buzzing. This had been unlike any interview they'd ever seen. No script, no safety net, just raw, unfiltered confrontation. Look, I don't hate Meghan Markle, Bill continued. I don't know her. But I hate what she represents. This culture of victimhood, this idea that being offended is the same as being right. This notion that we should all just nod along when celebrities tell us how hard their lives are while they live in mansions and fly on private jets. Somebody has to say no. Somebody has to push back. And if that makes me the bad guy, fine, I'll be the bad guy. The show went to commercial break. Bill stood up from his chair and walked off stage. His producers rushed over, already talking about the phones lighting up, about social media exploding, about how this was going to be the most talked about interview of the year. But Bill wasn't thinking about any of that. He had done what he always did. He had asked the questions no one else would ask. He had refused to play the game. And whether people loved him or hated him for it, at least he had been honest. In the green room, staff members were whispering about what they'd just witnessed. Some thought Bill had gone too far. Some thought he hadn't gone far enough. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was going to change everything, because Meghan Markle had walked onto that stage expecting another friendly interview, another chance to tell her story without being challenged, another platform to paint herself as the victim and everyone else as the villain. But she had run into someone who didn't care about her title, someone who didn't care about her fame, someone who only cared about the truth. And when the truth came out, when the hard questions were asked, when the comfortable narrative was shattered, she couldn't handle it. She did exactly what Bill said she would do. She ran away. The interview had lasted less than 20 minutes. 20 minutes that had felt like hours. 20 minutes that had exposed everything Bill had been saying. Meghan wasn't a victim. She was someone who used victimhood as a weapon. Someone who hid behind identity politics to avoid accountability. Someone who had built an entire brand on being oppressed while living a life of extraordinary privilege. And now everyone had seen it. The mask had slipped. The performance had ended. The real Meghan Markle, the one behind the carefully crafted image, had been revealed. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't sympathetic. It was entitled. It was petulant. It was someone who genuinely believed that asking her tough questions was the same as attacking her. Someone who thought that because she had faced some hardships, she was exempt from criticism forever. But Bill Maher had never played by those rules. He had never believed that fame or titles or victimhood gave anyone a free pass. And in those 20 minutes, he had proven his point better than any monologue ever could. Because actions speak louder than words. And Meghan's actions, her inability to answer simple questions, her defensive posture, her eventual walkout, they spoke volumes. They told the real story. Not the story she wanted to tell, but the story that was actually true. The audience filing out of the studio that night knew they had witnessed something special, something raw, something that would be replayed and debated for years to come. They had seen a celebrity confronted with uncomfortable truths, and they had seen how that celebrity reacted when the world didn't revolve around her. They had seen Bill Maher do what he did best, not attacking for the sake of attacking, not being cruel for ratings, but asking the questions that mattered, pushing back against narratives that didn't hold up under scrutiny, refusing to bow down to someone just because they were famous. And most importantly, they had seen what happens when an entitled celebrity meets someone who isn't impressed by titles or tears, someone who cares more about truth than popularity, someone who would rather be right than be liked. That was the real story. Not that Bill Maher had been mean to Meghan Markle, but that he had treated her like he would treat anyone else, with tough questions, honest pushback, and zero special treatment. And she couldn't handle it, so she left. She walked out. She proved every single point Bill had made about her. And in doing so, she showed the world exactly who she really was. Not a duchess, not a victim, not a hero, just someone who wanted attention and sympathy without ever having to face accountability. The truth had come out that night in the studio, and the truth was ugly. Not because Bill had been cruel, but because reality. When you strip away all the PR and the image management and the carefully worded statements, is often uncomfortable. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your narrative. It just is. And Meghan Markle had spent years building a narrative that couldn't survive contact with reality. The moment someone challenged it, really challenged it, with facts and logic and uncomfortable questions, The whole thing fell apart. She fell apart, and everyone watching saw it happen in real time. That's what made the interview so powerful. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't planned. It was just one person refusing to play along with another person's performance. And when the performance ended, when the mask came off, what was left wasn't pretty. It was entitled. It was defensive. It was someone who had convinced herself that she was always right, that she was always the victim, that everyone else was always wrong. And when confronted with a different perspective, she couldn't engage with it. She could only run from it. Bill had given her every opportunity to make her case. He had asked direct questions. He had given her the floor to explain herself, but she couldn't do it. She couldn't defend her positions with facts. She couldn't answer the hard questions. She could only get angry and offended and ultimately leave. And that told everyone watching everything they needed to know. Not about Bill Maher, but about Meghan Markle. About who she really was when the cameras weren't following a pre-written script. About how she reacted when someone didn't treat her like royalty. She failed the test. The test of honesty, the test of accountability, the test of being able to defend your own statements when challenged. She failed it completely, and everyone saw it happen.